Top 10 Scariest Roads in the World. The road less taken is always avoided for a reason. More than 1 million people die in traffic accidents every year, especially on bad roads. The greatest cause of accidents is human error and negligence, but not all the time. Some roads are simply the definition of death traps. From roads winding up mountains with extremely sharp bends to routes patched on mountainsides with 1,000 feet drops on each side. These roads are still the only route available, especially for the locals, making them the most perilous routes on Earth. The Gobi Tunnel Road, China. This road is famously known in China as the road that doesn't tolerate mistakes. It is both impressive and perilous, causing hundreds of deaths every year, but there is nothing much the government can do because it is the only way to reach the remote village of Guzhong. The locals did a great job creating accessibility to the rest of the world, but they were not master architects, so you can imagine what they did. The road is literally carved into the Taihang Mountains connecting Guzhong to the rest of the world. It is only 5 by 4 meters wide and 1.2 kilometers long, sneaking through the mountainside. It is literally impossible to overtake or overlap because the only room available is free fall into oblivion. The road has no guardrails at many spots, meaning the slightest mistake is also a death sentence. It also meanders through the rocks with poor visibility, tight bends and little room for maneuver. The drop on the mountainside is also so steep that the driver won't even imagine to enjoy the view. To ease the villagers' access to outside world, a group of villagers led by Shen Mingxin made plans in 1972 to carve a road into the side of the mountain. They sold their livestock to raise funds to buy tools and materials. 13 villagers began the project, with one dying during construction. Without access to power tools, they undertook construction mostly with hammers and chisels. At the most difficult stage, the tunnel progressed at a rate of 1 meter every 3 days. It is 1.2 kilometers, 0.75 miles, long, 5 meters, 16 feet, tall and 4 meters, 13 feet, wide. The tunnel opened to traffic on the 1st of May 1977. Its creation has turned the village into a tourist attraction. The area has also been used as a film location. Skipper's Canyon Road, New Zealand. When you travel to New Zealand's South Island, your rental car insurance just doesn't cover this road. It can't be traveled on by the faint-hearted or people that are afraid of heights because you will probably scream throughout the 16 miles. It always appears on the lists of the most dangerous roads in the world because of its narrow, precarious nature plus steep cliffs on the sides dropping several hundred meters. It was built in 1800 by miners who needed a way to access the Skipper's Township during the gold rush. They didn't account for future travelers or any luxury. You still get to enjoy the scenic landscape through the valley, but you have to be super cautious if you are to arrive safely on the other side. It is also very narrow. If you meet an oncoming vehicle, one of you will have to reverse on the narrow winding lanes for several kilometers before you find an opening. It was the cause of New Zealand's worst car accidents through the 90s until recently when the government installed guardrails, and drivers got a lot more careful. The government has also tarmacked the road and added markings, but it is not any less scary. By the time the gold rush was basically over, some future-oriented people of the Queenstown district saw potential in the use of Skipper's Road as a tourist attraction. Petitions supporting the plan that cars could be used to travel on Skipper's Road as well as petitions to ban them were signed. The community was split in two groups as a result. The court ruled that Skipper's Road could be used by cars, but drivers were obliged to give plenty of warning of their travel plans by applying for a permit. Even time limits of usage were defined. A fine of $10 was the penalty if those regulations were disregarded. Today, Skipper's Road is very much a tourist attraction. The Sichuan Tibet Highway, China. This is famously known as one of the most scenic drives in the world, featuring several mountains and lakes, as well as a chance to enjoy lots of local events, including horse racing and kangding. As the road snakes through the mountains and forests, you meet the scare of your life as rock falls and landslides happen frequently. Some parts of the road are also hazardous because of huge potholes and stretches of mud patches that get buses stuck. The roads get slippery at some spots, especially around the winter, sending vehicles skidding. If you happen to survive this ghostly road, you should probably bring a camera along to keep the record of your drive on the road of death. Originally known as the Kangding-Tibet Highway, this road is part of the China 318 National Trunk Highway that connects the Sichuan region to Tibet. Straddling the rivers of Yagongjiang and Daduhe is Mount Zhejua, which also forms a part of the famous Great Wall of China. The vast plains of Lietang, one of the highest towns in the world, are also a noteworthy stop for any motorist braving the Sichuan-Tibet Highway. Make sure to drive through the town in the summer to witness the annual Lietang horse racing, an unforgettable event that serves as one of the most anticipated in Tibet. Again, do not forget to bring your camera, as the local herdsmen in their finery, set against the emerald plains, will be a great subject for photographs. Mount Dagunyang in Shaojin is also a must-see sight, and with the nearby hazy gully with its amazing alpine lakes, you are sure to have a memorable trek. The road stretches more than 2,000 kilometers from Chengdu to Lhasa, and motorists braving this death-defying drive will be rewarded with views of the region's majestic peaks and breathtaking landscapes below. However, do not let all the majestic scenery lull you into complacency. Driving through the Sichuan-Tibet Highway does not only require skill, it also requires a lot of preparation. Make sure that you choose your vehicle well, and keep your eyes wide open at every inch of the way. The Sichuan-Tibet Highway has claimed thousands of lives over the last few decades, and a single mistake can result into swift death. The North Yungas Road, Bolivia. Driving on this road is like taking a road trip through a graveyard, with a very high likelihood of being buried on the mountainside as well if you make one wrong turn. When traveling from La Paz, the Bolivian capital, to the cool mountainous town of Coroaco, you will really try to avoid this particular perilous road. The number of perils here is totally uncountable, from foggy forest lanes and landslides to rocky cliff faces that can come tumbling onto the road without warning. The road was the only route from the town to La Paz, which saw many trucks and buses use it to connect the people with the city, but not all managed to complete the 43-mile ride alive. As you drive from La Paz, the road becomes extremely steep, climbing over 15,000 feet. The roadside is simply the face of a cliff with a fall over 200 meters. Up until 1994, this road claimed up to 300 lives a year. Every bend on the road is covered in crosses erected in memory of the thousands of victims of the Road of Death, as the road is called today. It was improved from the single lane to 2 lanes, but not much safer because the government can't move the mountain. The road is no more than 10 feet wide at its widest, the rest is just a narrow lane with hairpin bends. The Yungas Road is a cycle route about 60 kilometers long which links the city of La Paz and the Yungas region of Bolivia. It draws about 25,000 tourists per year and is a major La Paz tourist attraction. Many tour operators cater to downhill, providing information, guides, transport and equipment. At least 18 cyclists have died on the road since 1998. The tourist route is a 64 kilometers long road with 3,500 meters of descent. The route includes the Cotapada-Santa Barbara section. It replaced the old road, built in 1930. It was considered dangerous because of its steep slopes, narrow single track, lack of guardrails, rain, and fog, and was nicknamed the Road of Death. However, it was not the most dangerous road in the region. Unlike the rest of the country, traffic was left-hand, to allow the driver to assess the distance of their outer wheel from the edge of the road. The Himalayan Road, the Himalayas. Ever imagined what it feels like to drive on top of the world? The Himalayan Road connecting Indian Kashmir to Tibet is the second highest road in the world, traversed only by the bravest of drivers and, of course, adrenaline junkies. The road is not accessible in the winter because of the snow. It is not any safer in the spring either, as melting icebergs cause flooding, rockfall, and landslides. The road itself is a total scare as you stare down at the plains below, imagining you could roll over to your death with the slightest mistake. Some sections of the road are dug right into the mountainside, leaving huge chunks of rock hanging overhead like this giant scary roof with no pillars which could come crushing into your car any moment. The road is frequented by thrill seekers, especially bikers, and accidents are very common here, so you really need to be careful. You still get to breathe the sweet Himalayan air and enjoy the ice-capped peaks throughout the 475-kilometer drive. Not so bad after all, right? The James Dalton Road, Alaska. Alaska is always a dangerous place to drive in the winter, but the James Dalton Road is just dangerous every season. This road is famously referred to as both the loneliest and the most dangerous road in America. It was constructed as the main connection between Livengood, Alaska and Prudhoe Bay. It was primarily intended for trucks and heavy vehicles, but tourists became more frequent over the years. The entire road is full of potholes and gravel, sometimes large stones. Winds in the chill are treacherous but not as bad as the winter storms, which make the road totally invisible. The whole 600-kilometer road has only 3 small towns of Deadhorse, Coldfoot, and Wiseman. Before you reach the Yukon River, you have to maneuver dangerously sharp bends and deadly climbs. There are no gas stations nor cellular service on the 2-day drive road, so a breakdown or the smallest accident on that freeway may be your ticket to glory land. The road itself is mostly gravel, very primitive in places, and small vehicle and motorcycle traffic carries significant risk. The nearest medical facilities are in Fairbanks and Deadhorse. Anyone embarking on a journey on the Dalton is encouraged to bring survival gear. Despite its remoteness, the Dalton Highway carries a good amount of truck traffic through to Prudhoe Bay, about 160 trucks daily in the summer months and 250 trucks daily in the winter. The highway comes to within a few miles of the Arctic Ocean. Beyond the highway's terminus at Deadhorse are private roads owned by oil companies, which are restricted to authorized vehicles only. There are, however, commercial tours that take people to the Arctic Ocean. All vehicles must take extreme precaution when driving on the road, and drive with headlights on at all times. There are quite a few steep grades, up to 12%, along the route, as well. The Stelvio Pass, Italy. The original road was built in 1820 to 1825 by the Austrian Empire to connect the former Austrian province of Lombardy with the rest of Austria, covering a climb of 1,871 meters, 6,138 feet. The engineer and project manager was Carlo Donegani, 1775 to 1845. Since then, the route has changed very little. Its 75 hairpin turns, 48 of them on the northern side numbered with stones, are a challenge to motorists. The Stelvio Pass Glacier in Italy, at an altitude of 3,450 meters, 11,320 feet, normally permits skiing year-round, but was closed to skiing for the first time in 90 years in August 2017 due to a heatwave. It is one of Europe's greatest works of engineering, one of the world's most scenic drives but also the most dangerous road in Italy. It is a winding road rising over 9,000 feet onto the Ortler Alps. It is frequented by bikers and thrill-seekers from Tyrol to Bormio as they cheat death every day to enjoy the scenic view down the Alps. The sharp bends get dangerously narrow at some points, putting the driver just inches away from the deadly drop on the sides. Overtaking is really not an option, nor speeding for that matter. The only form of safety on the road is a low-lying concrete barrier that might not deliver much protection if a driver is out of road. Some twists and turns, narrow as they are, simply unsecured, causing multiple accidents every year. The Passage du Gua Road, France. Ever heard of the road that disappears and appears with the tide? This is a 4.3 kilometers road on the Atlantic coast of France connecting the mainland to the island of Noirmoutier. It is a national monument and famous tourist attraction as people flock in every twice a day to witness the miracle of the tides. If you happen to be on the road at the wrong time, then meet the tide, you will really wish you had a boat instead. The high tide also comes with lots of seaweed and gravel, making the road very slippery. As the steam rises, the whole road suddenly becomes foggy, making visibility nearly impossible. The road is still great to drive on as you enjoy the greatest beach drive of a lifetime. Connecting the Gulf of Bern-EF with the island of Noirmoutier, Passage du Gua not offers us some beautiful views but is extremely dangerous too. The 2.58-mile road that has been in use since the 16th century disappears under the Atlantic Ocean's water twice a day, every day. During high tide, when the sea level rises, the stone-paved road is submerged to as deep as 13 feet, so drivers must beware for the upcoming wave, which can be measured by special side panels on this half-land, half-waterway. If accidents do happen, and people are left stranded on the disappearing road, tall emergency towers are there for people to climb and wait to be rescued. After the water level recedes, the passage is left covered in slimy seaweed, making the road extremely slippery at places. Nonetheless, Le Passage du Gua was used many times as a part of Tour de France route and was only taken off the map after a serious incident in 1999. So, if you're planning a trip to France, this wonderful seascape might be a worthy place to visit. The Taroko Gorge Road, Taiwan. The experience of using this road is very impressive. Taroko means magnificent and splendid in the language of the Aboriginal Truku tribe, a name that gives you a sense of the views you'll see while you're driving here. Until the 50s, only a trail ran through the gorge. Chiang Kai-shek decided to build a road to cross Taiwan from west to east through the Central Range. The road is dangerous because buses, pedestrians, scooters and cars all fight for space on the narrow road. Heavy rain in typhoon season dislodges debris onto the road and walls of the nearby gorge, prone to failure under seismic activity. The road is widely recognized as one of the most dangerous roads in the world. As well as its winding blind corners, the road has fallen into disrepair and is constantly impacted by heavy rainfall, causing rockfalls and landslides. The road through the gorge, carved right out of the mountain face, is amazing, and unimaginably precarious, with terrifying views downward toward the Liwu River, hundreds of meters below. Along the highway you'll experience innumerable cliffside, hairpin turns, little rock falls and dozens of unlit, single-lane tunnels. Only one large vehicle, such as a tourist bus, can pass through at a time. The road is pretty narrow, so only experienced drivers should drive there, and they should do so at their own risk. This road is closed when there are earthquakes and typhoons because it is nearly impossible to drive along the road during these conditions. The Taroko National Park in Taiwan is one of the greatest tourist attractions in Taiwan, but the road there is a total scare. The road is carved through a mountain snaking past the Taroko Gorge, famous for its marbles and falling rocks. The scenic view of the gorge and surrounding mountains is in itself breathtaking, but you need to be a steady hand at the wheel to stay alive on this road. Most of the trouble comes during the monsoon season as strong winds and heavy downpour makes the road very slippery. Seismic activity is also common in the gorge. You could easily find all sections of the road cut off if you have not been buried under the rubble yourself. The road is also poorly maintained since there is little the government can do to improve the scary landscape. Karakoram Highway. This is the highest tarmacked international road in the world, elevated at over 15,000 feet above the sea level. The scare of this road precedes it, as its very existence is a tribute to the 900 workers that died during its construction. It is the main road connecting China to Pakistan over the Karakoram Mountains, featuring deadly hairpin bends. The road is over 13,000 kilometers long, well tarmacked, and maintained on the Chinese side, but the exact opposite on the Pakistan side. It is only 10 meters wide, featuring a high rock face on one side and a scary drop on the other side. It is really not a trip to take if you are afraid of heights. During the rainy season, flash floods are very common, sweeping away sections of the road, including bridges. Landslides sometimes cut off sections of the road, making it totally inaccessible. The Karakoram Highway is the highest paved and one of the most dangerous roads in the world. It connects China and Pakistan. The Chinese section of the highway has long been a constant participant of fatal accident summaries. In this case, no mystical events occurs on the road. It is really very difficult and sometimes is extremely narrow. The situation on the road is complicated by frequent downpours. Severe landslides have repeatedly destroyed the road, so today, some sections of the route do not have coverage and stone mounds provide a notional fencing. Riders and bikers other than motorists are also often the participants and perpetrators of road accidents. The total length of the highway is 1,300 kilometers. Its construction was started in 1956 and lasted for 20 years. Historically, this was a caravan trail, one branch of the ancient Silk Road. It is therefore a national symbol for local residents. It is a notorious highway and many people associate this with the history of its construction. 20 years of construction work killed at least 1,000 workers. Downpours, landslides and numerous accidents took their lives. Realists associate an accident rate with bad resistance to altitude sickness. Anyway, the scenic Karakoram Highway forces the drivers always to be all attention.